What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Chat with Langston podcast. And in today's episode, I actually have one of my closest friends from RIT, whose name is Shreya Patel. Yay! All right, so this is actually not the first time we have been doing a podcast together. We also have another podcast where we actually talk about her life in the USA, what was it like to come over here. So you can definitely listen to that podcast whenever you want. I can post the link right below if that helps you. Um, Regardless, in today's episode, we're just going to be talking about. So Shreya recently graduated. So Shreya, congratulations. And she actually just got a job in California. She's just started, like, I think little over a month ago, I guess, or a month ago. And what we're gonna talk about is her experience in college. We'll go briefly over it and what was engineering really like. That's essentially what the essence of this podcast is going to be about. But before we get into that, Shreya, I would like you to introduce yourself. Just tell the audience about yourself. So yeah, go ahead.
Hi everyone, this is Shreya Patel, and like Langston mentioned, one of his, I guess, closest friends from RIT. And I recently did graduate. I graduated with a dual degree in electrical engineering, dual degree meaning bachelor's and master's. And I actually started my full time a little less than a month ago. It's
Okay,
still yet to be a
thanks for
month,
clearing
so
that
very
up.
recent. No problem. So yeah, that's me. And I think that's it
Okay,
for now.
so you said dual degree. Did you actually know that you're going to be doing a dual degree in the beginning itself? I'm just kind of curious to know, like, what was that like? Did you like change in between, or was that something that how did that work?
So actually, like I kind of was interested in doing a dual degree ever since I was in high school
Mhm.
because I found out about that from like one of my high school teachers. And when looking for a college and applying to them, that was one of the things I did look for.
Okay.
And at RIT, I found out that that is something that you do second year of college. So I
Mhm.
had about a year to decide, but I kind of spent a year to decide my major itself. So I think going into it, that was something I did want to do because I didn't really have any like special interests that at the time to go for a master's with. So I was like, whatever engineering I do decide, I wanted to do both. So I just reached out and kind of got into it.
And that took you about 5 years. It's the same time frame, I guess, right? 5 years.
Yeah, at RIT, like almost all the engineering ones, I don't want to say all of them, but nearly all of them, is the same time as the bachelor's.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. So it's like shooting two birds with
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
sort of. Yeah. And I think like in that I might want to say a little good things about RIT for sure is that they do a great job of like helping you out with that. And
Yeah.
also like in terms of tuition, they were like, yeah, don't worry about it kind of a thing. So I was like, well, that's good for me because.
That is pretty awesome because actually there's a very similar program for even for like CSAC, I mean CSEC, where there's like if you take like a certain amount of courses or like higher advanced courses, that would let you like graduate with a BS MS degree. And the thing is that I was very when I got to know about this, it was too late, and I was like, okay, whatever. But it's a good thing that they offer. So yeah. Um, so all right, if you want to sponsor this podcast, just know that we're saying good things about you. I'm just kidding. That'd be dope though if they do sponsor this podcast. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I mean that's awesome that RIT offers that. I'm not so sure, but generally speaking, I don't know that any other university actually gives you that option. I'm pretty sure there are some campuses, but it's not that I've heard of, at least in my time over here. So it's great that you actually got to do that. So moving into engineering, so tell us, like, I would say, let's start, like, what were the first 2 years of engineering, like the experience? Like, did you even like, I know that in the first year, I actually met you in your freshman year. So like, I know that you did not really know that this is even what you wanted to do and stuff. So like, I just want to know like what was the first 2 years like, the journey, and you don't have to like go deeply into it, just like briefly, high level kind of thing.
I guess personally for me, engineering wasn't something that I wanted to do as a child. I actually was planning to go into being a doctor. I don't know where that went, but yeah, throughout my life, I think something happened, and I'm like, yeah, I actually don't want to be a doctor. And I think that changed, sort of started to happen around middle school. So
Yeah.
in middle school, I did some clubs, which were regarding engineering, and I uh, enjoyed science and math. So that was my, like, I guess, attraction towards engineering, because that's how many clubs back then, at least, like advertised many engineering clubs.
Mhm.
Because until you kind of like pick something that you like,
Mhm.
it's usually a mix of science and math, like whichever area you go to.
Yeah.
And later on, that got translated into high school as well. And my father actually has done electrical engineering from India. So I was kind of aware of that, and a lot of my cousins are doing it too. So I had a lot of like knowledge about it. And after like being part of clubs, especially, I saw that I liked it, which is why I guess engineering as a whole, I knew I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So that kind of helped me going into RIT. And I just didn't know which kind, because I like the practical aspect of things as well. So I
Mhm.
wanted something more hands-on. And at the same time, I grew to like chemistry in high school. So that very little bit of electrical that had chemistry is what kind of got stuck me, like what kind of got me stuck with electrical instead of like any other time. So
Okay. That's pretty
yeah.
awesome though. Like I like the fact that you said that there are so many cues that was in high school. I mean, prior to high school and then in high school, and then your dad being an engineer too. I guess like all that helped you connect the dots. So when you look back,
Yeah.
you sort of connected everything. I'm like, okay, this is what interests you, and you want to give this a shot.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome. Because like that's definitely not how I did it. That's
Yeah. So in that
not
case, I
connecting
feel
any.
like
Uh, but
it was it was sort of linear, but at the same time, I think like other things in my life, I just try to make things more complicated. So
yeah,
that's how my life worked out with that.
I know about that. We should. That's a different podcast entirely. That's pretty
Let's
awesome.
not go there.
So like yeah, so you came to RIT, and I guess that's what you enrolled with, and then um did you know that you're going to be sticking with electrical engineering after your first year or during your first year?
It was actually after my first year. So RIT had engineering exploration, which is what I kind of enrolled myself in, because I was certain about the engineering part of things.
Gotcha.
So I took like half a year to kind of go through different kinds, which was mainly like a seminar based classes. And then the other ones were sort of like general education ones. So nothing really like technical there. And then second half of my first year, I took introductory classes in both electrical and computer engineering. And I uh, liked electrical better, and mainly the digital systems aspect, which is what I did my focus on right now.
Mhm.
And then my second year of coursework was getting a little bit more involved um, with electrical engineering, but it was also mainly to get the basic
Mhm.
knowledge for science and math courses. So I was taking a lot of like physics and stats and linear algebra and all the
Yeah.
fancy math courses that you take in college.
Yeah.
So I think it's for engineers, it's very important to get that base level knowledge before you can actually go ahead and apply it. So that's how the curriculum was laid out. And so my first 2 years, my first year focused on doing general education courses, and my second year was like science and math courses. And
Okay.
then later on is where I got into like the core
Okay.
electrical courses.
All right. Awesome. So I guess your first years is pretty well wrapped up in that case. Like I guess the first year did help you get into or make it helped to get to that decision. Again, a good thing that RIT offers. Just yeah. That's why I think people say RIT is a good school. I think like anyone whom I tell that I went to RIT, I think it's because of the way they design their curriculum is why they are known and it's why they're really popular. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
So
agree with that.
yeah, it's very flexible, very easy for you to make a decision. Not easy, but at least it just helps you. Um, so I don't want to get into like completely deep into your core courses and stuff. I want to know like so let's divide it into like two things, right? Like talk about like I guess your exciting projects, like or maybe one exciting project, or what does it look like in a high level? And I guess talk about the things that someone would not know, like what to expect in an electrical engineering thing, I guess. Or that might be the wrong question, but let's talk about one of your projects. What does it look like in electrical engineering? Like, because in mechanical, I know that it's something to do with, building up, like a lot of people build cars and stuff like that, this fancy projects. I kind of want to know what is it like in the electrical department or something that you've worked on if you want to share that as well.
So I think a lot of like when if you don't know a lot about electrical engineering or haven't heard much, many people think of electrical engineering as just like waves. And if you know a little bit more, then you know that there are
Wires.
two different, yeah, wires, and then there like are different types of electrical. So there are two major fields. It's analog and digital.
Mhm.
So I think analog is very commonly known amongst people because that's where all the fancy stuff happens: waves, wires, circuits,
Mhm.
math, and all that shenanigans.
Yeah.
But what I found interesting was that I didn't know personally much about digital. And it turns out that digital was actually the area that I was exposed to first in
Mhm.
terms of electrical. So that was something new for me. And I like computers. So a lot of my focus has been working with like electrical aspects of like computer systems and things like that. So at RIT, one of the things like at least from my experience and what I've heard, is that people usually think our lab work is like doing a bunch of calculations.
Mhm.
And you do that, you apply it, you build a circuit, and just hope and pray to God that it works.
Mhm.
But I was actually surprised when I was like going through like actual programming languages such as like C programming, assembly, and things. And I was actually handed like a processor
Okay.
and told to like program it. And I'm like, wait, I thought that's what like, programmers did. Who
Yeah.
as an electrical will be doing that?
Yeah.
Um, so I think a lot of practical lab work is also present, which don't get me wrong, you still do a lot of calculations because you need to have like a predicted and an actual value.
Yeah.
But apart from that, also there is a lot of like hardware and actual hands-on stuff that is like involved in it, which is what I liked, and also something I feel like not a lot of people know, because me personally didn't know much about it like going in.
Mhm.
So I think that kind of addresses both of that. And I think I mentioned the processor project. So if you were to ask me what was my favorite project, that was probably my favorite project, because since I love uh, computers, or at least have like an interest in it, being able to kind of get that knowledge and be able to build like a processor from scratch, it was almost like the 1 year to 2 year long project. if I combine like both of
Wow.
my courses.
Wow.
But I was able to do it from scratch, and like actually seeing that work and being able to understand exactly how it works, you realize computers are not just magic.
That is so cool. Yeah. That must have been an interesting
So
project.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like exactly like how the bits and pieces move from like when you start it to like how you see it, and
Yeah.
almost like sort of like the actual hardware putting
Yeah.
like being at work is kind of interesting to me, at least. So that's what I enjoyed the most. And yeah, it's a pain, obviously, like any other
But you
lab work,
enjoyed
I
it.
would
That's
say.
what mattered, right? Like you liked the project, and you know, so that's why you could actually go through it, I guess, because that's not an
It's
easy.
exciting to make it
Yeah,
work. Yeah.
preparing is good. You talked a lot about something to do with like software and coding, and I personally know that you also took an intern. You had some internships where it was mostly software related. So I guess, do you want to talk about a little bit about like how was your coding journey somehow brought into your curriculum? Because I think that was something that you did not see coming. And I personally would never think that electrical engineers even code. But somehow I saw that in your journey. And I want to know, like, where did it exactly start? And was it in college? Was it an internship that actually brought that? Or was it the best of both?
So my first programming language was in college. I actually started learning C and Python together. And Python, if I'm not wrong, is supposed to be like very simple to learn and stuff, but I had
Uh-huh.
no idea about how even Python, like that's what I was told from my teacher. So I'm just gonna go with that. But
When
C on
don't
the
tell
other
children.
side, well, we'll just go with that for now,
Mhm,
I guess.
mhm,
And then C on the other hand, I was told that required a lot of like attention to details, and it was a little more complicated because it had another part called C++, which had this whole concept of like oops involved and stuff like that. So
mhm,
me being very new to programming, had no idea about what any of the people around me were talking about,
mhm,
clearly. So with that in mind, I was like, okay, great, let's learn this because I feel like I have to. So when I was learning it, I didn't really see much application in my field for it, but it was part of like the curriculum that was involved. But however, later on, it started becoming a part of it because then I found out that there are actual things called hardware description languages, which follow programming concepts, and they're not as simple or basic as like any programmer would know them, but it's technically programming your hardware. So those are like languages that were, I guess, built on the basis of like basic programming concepts
mhm,
to program your like hardware, and you can have like custom hardware, and here I'm talking about like having a piece of board and circuitry, and
mhm,
you actually write code to like translate it for that board to work.
mhm,
So that's like a sub part of um sorry, I don't want to mess things up. I don't think it's a sub part, but it is like programming, but they fall under the category of HDLs, as they refer it, hardware description languages. Now, this is something I learned throughout my journey, and I realized that, oh, well, this could be a perfect place for me to combine what I started off with, which is where I was debating between electrical and computer. So I can actually apply all of the electrical knowledge I have and still go about programming, and that will be like a great fusion for me. So that got translated into my internships, because the first internship I found, I was working with a professor for his research, and it turned out that I could actually go ahead and explore this HDL stuff and like work with the hardware stuff and see if I like it. So I was working with C over there, but working on the hardware part of stuff. and I enjoyed that. And then later on, my second one was mainly in a like it was mainly software because it was on a software team. However, the
That's the one in
circuitry
Rochester, right?
and
The second one was
yeah,
the one that was down the road, guess, right?
yes, I didn't guess.
MKS? MKS, yes. MKS.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was more of like product development too. So over there, I was on a software team, but with the knowledge that I had about electrical, it kind of made it a bit easier for me to implement that. And I realized that I actually enjoy this. So that's where everything like came together. So I think like I found out about something I didn't know in classes, and then internship is what kind of put the dots together for me and being like, okay, so this is what you like and this is what you don't like.
That's pretty awesome. Just before we get into it, if you guys are listening to this podcast, when we're talking about internships over here, we are talking about the co-op program that actually RIT offers. It is actually built into the program that you're doing. So in her case, it's electrical engineering. So she had to do like 1 year of co-op or slash internship to basically be able to even graduate, because this is essentially, I guess this counts as credits towards your program, right? It's credits,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. So your internship is your credit. And the reason they do this is because they want the candidate to actually have work experience before they graduate. So basically, by the time they graduate, they essentially have 1 year of actual work experience, which is great, in my opinion. And the way I see it in your case is like this, and this all these internships or these two internships actually helped you kind of figure out what you liked, right? It could help you understand that you like software a little bit more. And I think from a lot of our conversations, that's kind of what I got from you as well. It's like you like that part
yeah,
a little bit more than I guess some the other aspects. That's great.
yeah,
So you did one with the professor, and the second one was at MKS. Did you do your third one? Did you have a third internship as well? Or
yeah.
okay, was that?
I had so third one was more of like a testing based position for
Oh,
me.
I know the third one. That was over here
Yes.
in Rome. Okay,
Yeah, it was in Rome with a government contractor.
okay,
So that whole internship was a full package experience for me.
okay,
But nevertheless, overall, I feel like a lot of my experience there was like testing different sorts of like designs, uh, which I found pretty useful because it kind of like enabled me or required me to kind of go about thinking as to how these designs come to be, because you can't just like make it and like pass it on.
yeah,
So I was kind of and I would like to say I didn't enjoy it much enough to go ahead with that like as a career,
okay.
but I think like the experience was needed because it was different, and I got to learn a lot of it. So,
Yeah, yeah. I remember like that was something I think you were initially excited about, but then once you got into that, you were like completely out of it.
yeah,
Not something that you
yeah,
wanted to do. And I'm so glad that ended as soon as it had to. So yeah, but at least you knew. At least you were like, oh, okay, that's not. I'm never gonna do this in my life, so it's good. Yeah,
yeah. So like in
important.
that case, I really feel like internships help a lot.
Internships really. You have to before getting into a full time, man. Like you got to get that experience. That's like so important. Um. But yeah.
Not just technical, I feel like it also helps a lot with like the non-technical aspects of the job too, which
Mhm.
I feel like is completely helping me out right now for sure. Because like being on a different coast altogether, and being with like a company that I've like never interned at actually, and it it's feels different, but at the same time, it's like okay, I've gone through this experience before, so it's kind of nice to just like be able to talk to your team and still like on board easily, because this is not the first time it's happening. And I feel like it's different when you think about it as a full time versus like a 3 month internship, because with a 3 month internship, at least you are like, okay, like, I'm getting this experience, I will be here for 3 months, and then I can decide later if I want to come back or not. So I'm kind of glad that my full time wasn't my first time experiencing everything.
No,
Because
no,
at
not
that
so
time
bad.
it's like I'm gonna be here for a while.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a very important point you touched on, man, because I think a lot of people they want to just like, I mean, if you get an internship and if you're too comfortable with it, you might end up being there. But you had like three internships, so you had like three different kind of experiences, which kind of helped you navigate to where you are right now. So
Yeah,
I think that's important. I think that's important for I think not just in engineering, like you said, everything,
everyone.
whether it's
Yeah.
technical, not technical, whatever. That's awesome. So I guess we pretty much covered a lot of the stuff that you went over in your 5 years. I think also, if anyone's listening to this, this is like a good high level view of what it looks like. Actually, we went a little bit maybe more deeper into the high level stuff. Um, so I wanna like know what let's just talk about like what advice would you give to anyone who is thinking about getting into engineering in general, but I would say more specifically electrical. Actually, let's make those two separate parts of the question. So I guess engineering and then second electrical.
Um, so being from India, I guess, and also around quite a few Indians, what I hear is that in India, engineering is like that's it. Like there is no social life once you get into engineering at all.
Mhm.
One thing I found out is that is to an extent correct, but I don't completely agree with it. So a lot of people, like a lot of times what happens, because I am one of them, is that I went into it thinking that, yeah, like, I need to like figure out what I'm doing and then kind of just forget that like there is any life outside of classes. But I would really advise that if like any advice I give you, that would be like one of the biggest ones, is try to have a life outside of classes. It really helps in classes as well. Because a lot of the times, if you already have your mindset that this is what you need to do, that's amazing. But don't push it to an extent where you kind of lose the meaning of like the whole college life, because if that wasn't the case, I actually wouldn't have met Langston. So, I'm kind of glad that I was, I'm glad that I was like actually um, pushing myself to go out, and also all of these great friends that I have made over there for me to like, pushing me and just dragging me outside of like my work and like schoolwork.
Yeah.
So that I feel like is correct about, sorry, that I feel like would be my advice for engineering in general.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, like have a life outside of classes, guys.
Yeah.
Try
uh,
to.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know how she said that, like, because of that, she met me and stuff. Yeah. Later on, as we get to know each other, she was the one pulling me out of, she was trying to make me more social. And I was always the one who was saying, oh, no, 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 for like outings and stuff. I was giving some lame excuse. And she would be like, oh, no, you have to come here. And she would like make me hang out and everything. So, yeah. And look, she still survived.
Hey, aren't you glad you came out for outings, Langston?
I am, man. Honestly, I am. I remember doing these projects with like Kaushal in the lab and stuff. And honestly, now that I think about it, like it was not even worth stressing that much about it. It was just like not worth it. Like you somehow get it
Yeah,
done, somehow everything gets done. You just gotta
it's like,
take a step back and enjoy those 5 years you have.
yeah, so you just like, you just have to breathe a little and try to balance out your life.
Yeah,
So you're doing what you want to do in life.
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so glad like you shared your whole journey now. Like, and yeah, I guess having a life is important. And that
Yeah.
also goes for having a life once you guys start work, guys. Please have a life then also.
Yeah,
What?
even if you're an introvert, sorry,
Yeah.
but like even if you're an introvert, trust me, I am not an extrovert at all. But it's nice to have a group of friends or just like, just like getting a break from
Yeah.
schoolwork is
Yeah. Hey,
enough.
shout out to all our friends. Kaushal, Nikhil,
Yeah.
Preet. Who else? Shit, I'm forgetting someone. Uh,
Onkar,
Har,
Prachi.
Prachi. Who else? Man, I know I'm forgetting. I just mean blanking out right now. There's more, I guess. Uh,
There are a lot more from
okay.
Dubai too, no?
Tushar,
Sure. Yeah.
Sharan, Safan,
Yeah.
Snehal,
Roshni.
Roshni. Yeah, yeah.
Uh, a
But I'm
lot
really referring
more.
to the people who actually we hung out, like,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
course, thought about it and stuff. But yeah, I'm glad that all that happened. Um, so now, like, you're working and everything, you moved to California. What's California like? Everyone's talking about, like, like, is it what people say it is, like, so hyped up, like, oh, California is always warm and whatever. I've never been there, so just like, you want to tell our audience what's it like living in California for a month, which might not be enough, but I'd like to know your opinion on it.
So moving from the East Coast, I still miss the East Coast. I
Mhm.
am not like shitting on California, so please don't get me wrong. But
Mhm.
like I just feel like I've spent a lot of my time and my like I've grew up on the East Coast almost. I can say so. I still miss it because I feel like a month is still too
So,
short.
yeah, still especially.
But I still like it. I still like California. I am starting to kind of get ways of the West Coast and how things work because like a lot of the stuff that is pretty normal back home is kind of very weird or new on this coast. So I'm still trying to like learn the life around and hitting upon the weather. Yes, I think in general it is a bit on the hotter side of things. But another thing I've realized is that it really, really depends on where the heck you are in California,
Mhm.
because the place I'm in is South Bay. So South Bay is sort of it's hot. It gets to a point where it's like 100 degrees, over 100 degrees. But a
Mhm.
lot of the times I find South Bay sort of like chill, where
Mhm.
it's like room temperature or like in the 80s or like, high 80s. Very, very doable.
That's
And
good.
it's nice and breezy as well too, which is the kind of weather I like because I don't want too hot or too cold.
Yeah,
So I can still walk out in my hoodie, which is like, okay, that's perfect for me.
yeah.
But if you were to like, for example, go to like SF, which is hardly like 50 minutes away from my place, it's very like rainy and colder from here. And it's just like, oh, we are in the same area. So like, how does that work?
Mhm.
So I really feel like, whereas on the East Coast, I feel like it's more of like bigger regions where like big areas of like land would have like similar type of weather. But over here I feel like it really just depends on which corner of like the mountain you are at, because I was visiting a friend an hour and a half away from here and it's over 100. I am in my shorts and I'm still sweating and
Mhm.
I don't want to get out of my like I don't want to get out of her house at all. And I'm just like, it's not even that far away though.
Yeah.
So in terms of weather, I really feel like it depends on which area you are at and like if you're around like water or mountains over here.
Mhm.
So
Nice,
yeah,
nice.
sorry for a detailed answer, but
Oh, no, no, detailed
I
answer.
found that very surprising.
No, no, it's nice. I learned something from that because even when I asked you, you never gave me that detailed answer. I guess in the podcast, it's like you have to bring it to the podcast to get that detailed answer. But it's good for anyone to know if you guys ever plan to, move to California eventually. I guess it's just nice to know someone's perspective. And I think, maybe later on we might do a podcast on comparing life in the East Coast versus the West Coast. I think more after you live there for maybe 6 months or a year or something. So that's like a future thing. But
Yeah,
yeah, anyways, thank you so much, Shreya, for coming on today. I think we're over a little 30 minutes now, but I think you gave a good overview and again a high level of what engineering is like. And I think hopefully this should be valuable to all our listeners, especially people, the younger people who are thinking about electrical engineering or pursuing it as a career, just having your listening to your experience, I think does matter, because it would really, it would at least give them like some guidelines as to know what they're getting into. And I'm sure maybe other universities might have it different, but we are talking from a RIT perspective. Every school is different. Every school has different projects, but the basics are always the same. So thank you again, and I hope all of you enjoy this podcast, and we'll catch you again on the next one. Peace out, guys.